G'day, I'm Declan Hooper, and welcome to the Ashes Review Daily. With me today, we have Phil Dillon, who's had a busy day, and all the way from the UK, Richard Hanson. How are we doing today, lads?
Bit chilly this morning.
Yeah, bit wet where you are, Phil.
Yeah, they're pissed down.
Yeah.
Fortunately, about 5 hours too late for England's England's perspective. However, that sort of like summed up the mood from my point of view after what had happened earlier in the day. So, a chance for England to get at the Australian batsmen in the last hour under gloomy skies just typically did not occur. Typically, as in England's luck or whatever, or a lack of fortune or whatever you want to say, it just didn't pan out that way, which now leads to David Warner being 75 not out in the first half an hour tomorrow morning. So,
well, as I was going to say, a game being called off in the end for bad light, you should be used to that by now, surely. Well, I mean, let's start from the start.
Before the toss, before they chose which players they decided to pick.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start?
Let's start there. Hey, so let's start. No Old Man Broad or Old Man Anderson for this test. I mean, there was, rumors flying around from last night and also this morning, but when they announced the teams, obviously not in the team carrying the drinks. What do we make of that?
Well, I'll come at this from a neutral perspective. Although I'm in the UK, obviously, I'd like to congratulate Australia for doing an Ijaz Patel and taking all 10 wickets. So that was always good. But from a neutral perspective, I actually don't think England could have done any worse. And I mean that in terms of selection decisions. I mean that in terms of the toss, and I mean that in terms of how they played. So for me, saying, well, we're going to rest Jimmy and we're not going to play Broad because we want them to be fit and firing for the Adelaide test, for me is a terrible idea. You need to get away with at least a draw at the Gabba if you're going to have any chance of winning the series. So England have gone one step too far ahead and thought, well, we need to make sure that we win in Adelaide. No, you need to make sure you don't lose in Brisbane, right? First and foremost. So let's just park that for a second, okay? La Nina, very humid, cloudy conditions, damp pitch, turn up on day one and you don't bowl two of your best premier seamers who have got hundreds of wickets down under, replace it with an attack who is largely inexperienced in those conditions. Joe Root bats first and exposes his top order to what is arguably a very difficult hour, especially, and never mind the fact that they're very underdone. They've not played first-class cricket for however long, many, many weeks. And then they fold like a cheap suit. It suggests to me that, it just couldn't have got any worse for England. And, if I was the Australian top order, I would be laughing. They would, put them in on those conditions. I know they're at home and things, but the Australians haven't played a test since January. And their top order is hardly what it used to be. I mean, it could have been them that was 11 for 3, but instead it was England. And
Well, Pat Cummins did say that he was thinking of having a bat as well. Do you think there was much validity to that, or was that just all mind games?
At the press conference, at his press conference afterwards, he said it was 50-50. So he was no way he would have said, yes, we'll bat straight away. He would have had to gone back to the boys in the dressing room and said, what do you want to do? And they would have said, we were having a bowl, mate. Mitchell Starc might not be able to swing the ball as much as he used to or whatever. He was fired up. Warney got him fired up, like Richard said in his tweet earlier.
Shane Warne did his best in the 9 games, didn't he?
It's easy to be like, this might sound like we're talking after the event, which I said at the time before the toss was made. I saw the pitch and I'm thinking, bloody hell, we can't outbat on that. This is like England's chance to have the Gabba in most English conditions that they're ever likely to get. And first of all, they leave out their 2 best bowlers of the last 15, 20 years or ever, probably their best 2 bowlers ever. arguably, and then they go and win the toss and put the opposition. Asked to bat first. I just look at. Yes, it's easy to say yes. They've fallen and 147 all out. They didn't bat very well. It's not a 147 all out pitch, let me tell you. And most would say about a Brisbane green top, whatever time of year, it does happen every now and again that you survive the first couple of hours, then you can build in the afternoon. But England didn't look like they were going to get anywhere near. And the reason is because of that, is because they have been 3 for 30 or worse in almost every test match of the last 2 years. So what the freaking hell were they thinking? Their top order, they've been 5 for 100 5 wickets down for less than 100 in their last 9 test matches.
The only thing I'm going to say, play devil's advocate on the other side, is to say, well, yes, Australia have to bat tomorrow. That rain is forecast, so I'm sure it's going to be. The sun might be shining, but there's every chance that it'll be humid. So there is every chance that England will bowl well and bowl Australia out cheaply, 250, which keeps them in the game. Doesn't certainly put them in front of the game, but all is not lost for England. But they've just made it a hell of a lot more difficult for themselves.
It's disappointing. Obviously, they're losing your opening batsman to the first ball of the game.
Well, let's talk about
changes your mindset. It changes your mindset totally. Obviously, it does. That goes without saying. However, from that moment on, the shot selection was poor. They're only out of all the batsmen's dismissals today. Joe Root probably was the only one who got a top-class delivery. All the rest contributed to their own downfall, I would suggest. Having looked at it from my point of view, from my stance, or whatever.
Look, I think, obviously the English batting lineup was, folded like a chair, as we said. But I think some credit needs to go to the Australian bowlers. I think, as I was saying, look, you may not agree, but I think Hazelwood was really, really good. And obviously a fired up Stark is probably the best he's looked in a little while, and obviously Pat Cummins had a perfect day his first day out as captain, taking 5 wickets. So I think while England made it as easy as possible, you still have to take the wickets, and Australia did quite a good job of that. I thought the only one that really, took it to the Australian bowlers was Josh Butler when he came in. He looked good for his 30-odd. He gave a few chances away, and it did look like there was possibly a wicket coming, but he was still scoring quickly and, making the field spread and that kind of thing.
Yeah, what Pat Cummins did really well, and I spoke to him after the game about this and asked him why he did it. He made 11 bowling changes in 41 overs. Now, he said one of the reasons for that was because it was bloody humid out there. But he had Mitchell Stark bowled 2 overs in his first spell. Cameron Green took the wicket of Ollie Pope and then came off, and Josh Hazelwood came back and after that. So he bowled 1 over. And he himself, what the other thing they did well, Australia never gave England any freebies. It was like, so Stark gets a wicket with his first ball in his first spell. Cummins got 2 wickets in his second and third spell in his first over back. Cameron Green's first ball to Ollie Pope in his second spell was a wicket. So there were it wasn't like looseners or anything like that. So you have to give them credit. They bowled well. But come on, boys, it's not a 147 all out pitch, is it really? No. It might be 247 all out. And then you could say at least England have given themselves a chance.
It's a case of Joe Root going to his openers and saying, look, guys, it's green, but we're going to bat first, and I need you to fight your ass off for the first session. Mm-hmm. If you go to bat first, right? It'll flatten out. It'll be simpler in the afternoon and the evening. If England were, if they fought in that first session and made a little bit of hay in the second session, obviously the third session would have been washed out. Even if they were 5 for 100 going into tomorrow, they'd probably get 200, 250, which is a hell of a lot better than your 147. So I just think it's a really difficult strategic decision, a really silly strategic decision from
you could
Joe
see
Root.
you could see that after lunch how the ball when the ball got softer and the pitch flattened out a bit and it wasn't doing as much, how much easier it was for batting.
Yeah.
Even Chris Wokes, when he's with his 20 odd, plays some magnificent shots.
Not to mention that the bowlers get tired and
exactly. So and Mark Wood played probably one of the shots of the day with an off drive that he played off Mitchell Stark. So that's your 8 and 9 or 8 and 10 playing shots like that. So that just goes to show that, as always is with a Gabba wicket, it's pretty dodgy to start with, but if you can get the first hour or two out the way, then it'll flatten out. The ball gets old, the bowlers get tired. It's humid, so you should think that the batsmen will start to swinging around. But they didn't give themselves the chance because they kept shooting themselves in the foot by making the wrong choice and losing wickets in clumps. They lost 5 for 35 at the end.
Can't really blame that. Can't really blame the lower order on the failure.
No, you can't. No, that's fair enough. I mean, like we've said before on this podcast, there'll come a time when England are 2 for whatever that Joe Root comes in and he can't save them. And today was that day. Today was that day, and that would have been Australia's dream to get Joe Root out. I mean, look, he got an absolute perler from Josh Hazlewood, who was Australia's best bowler. Even though Pat Cummins picked up 5 wickets, Hazlewood is the reason probably why Pat Cummins picked up those wickets, because he put so much pressure at the other end, and batsmen think, okay, I've only got Pat Cummins at the other end, I can sort of take a few chances. I'm not sure whether England, with their bowling attack, without the likes of Broad and Anderson, have that same capacity. It'd be interesting because, like you say, both sides need to bat before we can judge what the wicket's going to be like.
Massive opportunity tomorrow morning for Robinson and Wokes. Yeah. I mean, Wokes will bowl well in these conditions, and Wood as well. I don't think Leach is going to be particularly effective, certainly in the first innings. Might do if the match goes to day 5, which at this stage it probably won't. But yeah, I mean, the Australian top order now, while they are under pressure and there's obviously some question marks surrounding many of them, they'll go out there and they'll be like, look, there's only 147 on the board. Even if we don't have a particularly good day at the office, all we need is 1 or 2 reasonable partnerships and we're up level with England. And then every run that we score after that, England have to get back. So it's taking the pressure right off.
Where the David Warner plays, he could knock half of that off on his own in next to no time, which is now probably he's got carte blanche to do that because it's such a small total. He can really go out and take some chances. It doesn't matter whether if he gets out early, because it's if it comes off, it's brilliant. If it doesn't come off, you've only lost 1 wicket. So he's going to go out tomorrow and think, right, okay, I've got license. And then Pat Cummins will probably say, just play your normal game, mate. And if it comes off, we know what he's like. It's not necessarily a flat track, but as I said before, it's not a demon. There's no demons in that surface. Like Cummins said in his press conference, that he did just enough. And I think that's why he could move, change his bowlers pretty often, because it was doing enough for everyone.
Well, okay, so moving forward then, I think, look, I didn't see the English press conference after the game. Obviously, you were there, Phil. So just as bad as it was today, I don't think 150, it could have been worse. And I think there's still a chance in this game, especially with the way the weather looks like tomorrow. Moving forward, how do you see the first session tomorrow playing out and beyond?
The propensity for overseas bowlers at the Gabba is to see a little bit of bounce and then necessarily think, we'll have to bowl a little bit short. You bowl short at the Gabba at your peril, as New Zealand found out a couple of years ago.
We don't want to talk about New Zealand's batting. Certainly not in this podcast. I'll talk all day about their bowling, about their spin bowling, but I won't talk about their batting.
But what I'm saying, there's a length at the Gabba they talk about. It's just short of a good length. top of off stump. It's same old, same old. Give the ball a chance to swing. Give the ball a chance to move off the deck. Look, England have got bowlers like Chris Wokes and Ollie Robinson who are that type of bowler. But what is worrying me a little, I say a lot, is how much they're going to get out of Ben Stokes. And that's why I can't understand why Stuart Broad was not in that team, because I personally think that Joe Root's now become a good enough off spinner to be almost like your number one spinner in a side if you want to go with four quicks.
The question for you, Phil, as well, just changing the subject ever so slightly. Obviously, Barmy were obviously not able to be there in the same kind of way that they normally are. What was the atmosphere like in the ground? I mean, there were a couple thousand Aussie-based English people.
So a friend of mine was near the Barmy Army, and he said they didn't stop singing all day long, and the wickets falling did not bother them. So that hasn't changed. It just there wasn't enough of them to make any real noise. There was like a sort of like pocket here of say a couple of thousand, and a pocket over there of a couple of thousand. They weren't all together like they have been in the past. So it wasn't like a huge noise. I have to say, some of their songs are a bit 90s, are a bit sort of like near the mark in this PC world that we live in. I'm not sure that they sort of like family friendly anymore. Some of the songs, but
have to change the lyrics. That obviously nothing to do with Tim Payne anymore is particularly relevant. Yeah. So the Barmy Army are, in my opinion, are at their best when England are getting belted, because it normally means that they're not watching the cricket and they're
exactly.
So.
Yeah. So they were they're apparently at their best today because exactly what happened. So the roar when Stark got that first wicket off the first ball was amazing, and it was only like I think only 26,000 at the Gabba, which is hardly capacity, but he was almost down the end of Vulture Street before they caught him. You know, it's like I'm off and running. He was gone.
So any predictions? Close of play day 2. I'm going with Australia. I'm going Australia 5 for 280.
I fancy Warner to get some big runs tomorrow as well, actually.
Yeah, it pains me to say, as the neutral.
What's the weather forecast first up? That's what I want to find.
Sunny in the morning, rain in the afternoon.
So we're saying it's
the same as today then.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. I think we'll lose some play, but it's good that there's an early start, get a few overs under the belt before lunch.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think personally, just like going but seriously thinking about what England can do to get back in. Now, I think they're one short with the bowlers. I mean, I'm not sure. Let's put it this: if Jack Leach is bowling to Warner if Warner's in for a few, been in for 3 or 4 hours, then England are in massive trouble. No disrespect to Jack Leach, but I think Warner will feast on him just as much as Rashid Pant did in India.
Australia will want to bat once. Now they've got an opportunity. They don't want to chase. They'll want to bat big and then bowling it out cheaply. So if you've got tickets for the weekend, I apologize, but you may not be able to use them. But maybe I'm getting too far ahead of myself. Maybe I'm doing a Joe Root or England selection.
Well, thanks for your time again, lads, and we'll see what the future holds.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. All right. Take care, guys.
No worries.
Bye.
Take care.